We are on our next two chapters of Wonder, called A Choose Kind and Lunch. So we're going to start with Choose Kind. There was a lot of shuffling around when the bell rang and everyone got up to leave. I checked my schedule and it said my next class was English, room 321. I didn't stop to see if anyone else from my homeroom was going that way. I just zoomed out of the class and down the hall and sat as far from the front as possible. The teacher, a really tall man with a yellow beard, was writing on the chalkboard. Kids came in laughing and talking in little groups, but I didn't look up. Basically, the same thing that happened in homeroom happened again. No one sat next to me except for Jack, who was joking around with some kids who weren't in our homeroom. I could tell Jack was the kind of kid other kids liked. He had a lot of friends. He made people laugh. When the second bell rang, everyone got quiet and the teacher turned around and faced us. He said his name was Mr. Brown, and then he started talking about what we would be doing this semester. At a certain point, somewhere between A Wrinkle in Time and Shen of the Sea, he noticed me but kept right on talking. I was mostly doodling in my notebook while he talked, but every once in a while I would sneak a look at the other students. Charlotte was in this class, so were Julian and Henry. Miles wasn't. Mr. Brown had written on the chalkboard in big block letters, Precept. Okay, everyone write that down on top of the very first page in your English notebook. As we did what he told us to do, he said, okay, so who can tell me what precept is? Does anyone know? No one raised their hands. Mr. Brown smiled, nodded, and turned around to write on the chalkboard again. Precepts. Rules about really important things. Like a motto, someone called out. Like a motto, said Mr. Brown, nodding as he continued writing on the board. Like a famous quote, like a line from a fortune cookie, or any saying on ground rule that can motivate you. Basically, a precept is anything that helps guide us when we're making decisions about really important things. He wrote all that on the chalkboard and then turned around and faced us. So what are some really important things? He asked us. A few kids raised their hand, and as he pointed at them, they gave their answers, which he wrote on the chalkboard in really sloppy handwriting. Rules, schoolwork, homework. What else? He said as he wrote, not even turning around. Just call things out. He wrote everything everyone called out. Family, parents, pets. One girl called out, the environment. The environment, he wrote on the chalkboard and added, our world. Sharks, because they eat dead things in the ocean, said one of the boys. A kid named Reed, and Mr. Brown wrote down, sharks. Bees, seatbelts, recycling, friends. Okay, said Mr. Brown, writing all these things down. He had turned around when he finished writing to face us again, but no one's named the most important thing of all. We all looked at him out of ideas. God, said one kid. I could tell that even though Mr. Brown wrote God down, that wasn't the answer he was looking for. Without saying anything else, he wrote down who we are. Who we are, he says, underline each word as he said it. Who we are, us, right? What kind of people are we? What kind of person are you? Isn't that the most important thing of all? Isn't that the kind question we should be asking ourselves all the time? What kind of person am I? Did anyone happen to notice the plaque next to the door of this school? Anyone read what it says? Anyone? He looked around, but no one knew the answer. It says, know thyself, he said, smiling and nodding, and learning who you are, what you're here to do. I thought we were here to learn English, Jack cracked, which made everyone laugh. Oh yeah, that too, Mr. Brown answered, which I thought was very cool of him. He turned around and wrote in huge black letters that spread all the way across the chalkboard, Mr. Brown's September Precept. When given the choice between right or being kind, choose kind. Okay, so everyone, he said, facing us again, I want you to start a brand new section of your notebooks and call it Mr. Brown's Precepts. He kept talking as we did, excuse me. He kept talking as we did what he was telling us to do. Put today's date at the top of the first page, and from now on, at the beginning of every month, I'm going to write a new Mr. Brown precept on the chalkboard, and you're going to write it down in your notebook, and then we're going to discuss that precept and what it means. And at the end of the month, you're going to write an essay about it. Excuse me. And what it means to you. So by the end of the year, you'll have your own list of precepts to take away with you. Over the summer, I shall ask my students to come up with their very own personal precept, write it on a postcard, and mail it to me from wherever you go on summer vacation. People really do that? Said one girl whose name I didn't know. Oh yeah, he answered. People really do that. I've had students send me precepts years after they've graduated this school. It's pretty amazing. He paused and stroked his beard. But anyway, next summer seems like a long way off. I know. He joked, which made us laugh. So everyone relax a bit while I take attendance, and then when we're finished with that, I'll start telling you about all the fun stuff we're going to be doing this year in English. He pointed to Jack when he said this, which was also funny, so we all laughed at that. As I wrote down Mr. Brown's September precept, I suddenly realized that I was going to like school no matter what. End of that chapter. Next one is lunch. Via had warned me all about lunch in middle school, so I guess I should have known it would be hard. I just hadn't expected it to be this hard. Basically, all the kids from 5th grade class poured into the cafeteria at the same time, talking loudly and bumping into each other while they ran to different tables. One of the lunchroom teachers said something about no seat saving allowed, but I didn't know what she meant, and maybe no one else did either, because just about everyone was saving seats for their friends. I tried to sit down at one table, but the kid in the next row said, "Oh, sorry, but someone else is sitting here." So I moved to an empty table and just waited for everyone to finish stampeding and the lunchroom teacher to tell us what to do next. As she started telling us the cafeteria rules, I looked around to see where Jack Well was sitting, but I didn't see him on my side of the room. Kids were still coming in as the teachers started calling the first few tables to get their trays and stand in line at the counter. Julian, Henry, and Miles were sitting at a table toward the back of the room. Mom had packed me a cheese sandwich, graham crackers, and a juice box, so I didn't need to stand on line when my table was called. Instead, I just concentrated on opening my backpack, pulling out my lunch bag, and slowly opening the aluminum foil wrapping of my sandwich. I could tell I was being stared at without even looking up. I knew people were nudging each other, watching me out of the corners of their eyes. I thought I was used to those kinds of stares by now, but I guess I wasn't. There was one table of girls that I knew were whispering about me because they were talking behind their hands. Their eyes and whispers kept bouncing over me. I hate the way I eat. I know how weird it looks. I had a surgery to fix my cleft palate when I was a baby, and then a second cleft surgery when I was 4. But I still have a hole in the roof of my mouth, and even though I had a jaw alignment surgery a few years ago, I have to chew food in the front of my mouth. I didn't even realize how this looked until I was at a birthday party once, and one of the kids told Mom of the birthday boy he didn't want to sit next to me because I was too messy with all the food crumbs shooting out of my mouth. I know the kid wasn't trying to be mean, but he got in trouble later, and his mom called my mom that night to apologize. When I got home from the party, I went to the bathroom mirror and started eating a saltine cracker to see what I looked like when I was chewing. The kid was right. I ate like a tortoise, if you've ever seen a tortoise eating like some prehistoric swamp thing. That's the end of that chapter.